What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG down there, youtube.com, all magic stuff because we like magic. More Eldritch Moon spoilers today for you. That's pretty much what we've been doing all week, and it's what we'll be doing, more or less, until this whole set is spoiled. We got some good stuff today. I like how the last couple of days have been like, this is definitely playable stuff, but today I feel like we got some things that are worth discussing whether or not they're playable. Starting with this thing right here. This is Strom Kirk Mystic, and it's 2 and a red for a 3/2 vampire horror with trample. You can also madness it into play for just 1 and a red. And it's got, when Strom Kirk Mystic deals combat damage to an opponent, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card. Vampires is a deck that wants to play with 0 cards in its hand at all times, if it plays optimally. This card helps it do that and still get card advantage. I like that it doesn't actually put the card in our hand. That's pretty cool. Madnessing it into play on turn 2 isn't impossible, you know, Insolent Neonate or something. There's a couple of things we can get this into play on turn 2 with. But, you know, I'm not really sure about this at the end of the day because the deck plays a lot of 3-drops and it's competing with a lot of different cards, you know, like Bloodhall Priest, Olivia, we have to play Olivia. And other things, you know, the deck could play Drana, and it probably will. The deck could even play Liliana, although I'm not sure. So, looking at all those 3-drops, the deck doesn't have room for all of them, and this thing looks like it might be one of the first cards to get cut. But again, the effect is very powerful for exactly this deck. Hi, Igby. Just freaked out. Usually combat damage is easier said than done, but they slap trample on the card, which makes it a lot easier, a little bit more desirable to play the guy. It's yet another possibly 2-mana 3-power guy for the deck. That's awesome. It's already got Air of Falconwrath. And I like the way the deck is shaping up on turn 2. You know, turn 2 you got Air of Falconwrath, or Strom Kirk Condemned, I believe it's called, the new card. It's right here. We just saw it the other day. So good turn 2 plays, and then turn 3, you can do a myriad of things. For, you know, because both of the turn 2 plays I just mentioned have free discard outlets on them. So at that point you can do a lot of stuff, whether it's Bloodhall Priest, you can play this guy and have mana open for a Falconwrath Gorger or a Fiery Impulse, or maybe even a Duress, whatever your, you know, 1-mana plays are in your version of the deck. So lots of stuff we can do on turn 2 and 3, and I like the way the turn sequences are shaping up for the deck. That said, again, I'm not really sure the card makes the final cut, but it's powerful pseudo card draw in a deck that wants exactly this kind of card advantage. Also spoiled super late last night here was Evangel Captive. This is also pretty interesting, and some people have been down on it, some people have been up on it. I'm in the up on it crowd. Evangel Captive is just a generic and a green. That's 2 mana for a 1/2 with Defender that you can tap to add a green to your mana pool. Or you can pay 5 generic and 2 green, that's 7, to transform Evangel Captive. He transforms into Olden Abomination. That's a 4/6 Eldrazi Werewolf, cool creature type, with tap to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Well, a ramp card that plays extra well in ramp, and I like that it can help itself transform, so some of the time you're reading that transform cost as just 6 mana. That's nice. I like the design here because I like that it's a mana guy. You're going to play mana guys anyway, you got to play dorks. That helps you, you know, in the later game. It's a ramp piece to be moving towards, you know? And it's not like the best thing you can do with 7 mana, but in the ramp deck, it's a thing to do for 7 mana, you know? You want to be able to do as much as you can with your mana once you hit that 6, 7, 8 mana threshold, you know? And 7 mana is pretty important in Standard right now. It gets us to Worldbreaker, sometimes Dragon Lord Atarka, you know. 7 mana is a pretty high mark and a pretty important mark right this second. And something like this works pretty well because if you got nothing else to do, you transform your guy. Once you transform him, he's a 4/6. Not bad stats at all. Or he can tap to help you get to things like Kozilek, you know, things you need colorless mana for, getting your Worldbreaker out of the graveyard, whatever. Exactly what a ramp deck wants. I just, again, like that a ramp thing, that a dork that ramps you, is also a thing that gets huge and we can ramp into later in the game. Just good design. But that's not all that's been causing discussion today. There's a lot of cards today that were spoiled that people are really like, is it possibly good? Here's another one of them right here. This card is named Collective Brutality, and it's 2 mana. It's just 1 and a black for a sorcery. With Escalate, discard a card. You can choose 1 or more of these modes depending on if you discard cards or not. Or mode 1 is target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose an instant or sorcery card from it, that player discards that card. Mode 2 is target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. And the final mode is target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Now this probably does too much to not be relevant, but what does it go in is the big question, you know. People are saying Madness, but the Red-Black Vampires deck looks like the premier Madness deck in the format, or at least it's going to try to be. And the best ways to discard cards in the deck are all free, and, you know, based on creatures and stuff. So whether they're Olivia, you know, or the 2/2 drops in the deck, Era Falcon Wrath and Condemned, you know, just free discard is the way to go in that deck. I don't know if we want to pay 2 to discard a card. It is worth noting, though, that of course if you just pay the 2 and don't discard anything, you still get to choose a mode, and it's got good removal on it. It can get things like removal or, you know, Collected Company out of their hand with the first mode. That's not bad. And, you know, the third mode is a 4-point life swing, but I feel that's probably going to be the least used mode on the card. But it does give these you know, aggro Madness decks, if they choose to play this card, some amount of reach. You know, we just saw Bloodhall Priest the other day. I'll talk about that card for the next month or so. I really hope that card's for serious. But in any case, this is another way of giving the deck a little bit of reach. So I could totally see this working, you know, in the Madness deck. But again, if we, you know, play this and then Madness something, it's going to cost us at least 3, if not 4 mana. And I'm just not sure that's what the deck wants to be doing. But it's pretty good against certain things, you know. It's, again, fine removal on turn 2. So I feel like the card will be somewhat relevant. It definitely seems good to use the discard mode and the removal mode. That seems great, especially against Bant Company. You know, kill one of those small creatures, get the Collected Company out of their hand, or the Dromoka's Command. So, yeah, seems like a decent piece against that. It may see sideboard play, but I'm really excited to see whether or not it sees main deck play. There seems to be a theme today. Yet another card here that's causing a lot of discussion, but this one has a lot of people on different ends. People are saying that this is garbage, and some people are saying that this is amazing. So I'm going to let you take a look at this right here. This is Distended Mind. That's a weird name. It's 8 generic mana for an Eldrazi insect. It's a 5/5 with a merge 5 and 2 black. Now when you cast Distended Mind, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose from it a non-land card with converted mana 3 or less, and a card with converted mana cost 4 or greater. That player discards those cards. My favorite thing to do with this, at least theoretically, would be to play Matter Reshaper on turn 3 and then this on turn 4. That seems like crazy card advantage, getting a card off Matter Reshaper and 2 cards possibly out of their hand, and a 5/5 on, you know, on turn 4. All of that seems pretty good, but that also seems slightly Christmaslandish, so we'll see whether or not this card is real. I like that it's really good against control. It's a cast trigger, so even if they counter it, you're going to be able to rip 2 cards out of their hand, whether, you know, it's a removal piece and a planeswalker, their finisher and a removal piece. It's always going to be, or maybe anticipate, who knows. But definitely probably shines against control, but could be good against literally anything if you can run it out on turn 4. Continuing with our theme of things that either terrible or amazing, here's Emrakul's Evangel right here. It's 2 and a green for a 3/2 human horror, and you tap it and sacrifice it and any number of other non-Eldrazi creatures to put a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token onto the battlefield for each creature sacrificed this way. Not actually too bad. You know, a lot of people are like, man, this card, but it could actually, and this is kind of a bold thing to say, but this could maybe replace things like Nantuko Husk when they rotate out in late September. I could totally see it happening. You can sacrifice either your whole team, select members of your team, or even just him. And with a Zulaport Cutthroat out, you get a buttload of triggers. So not bad at all there. And it can also save our guys from spot removal. That seems cool, you know. You can only sacrifice him and no other creatures if that's what you're choosing to do. That's also cool. You can sacrifice our tokens and upgrade them as long as they're not Eldrazi Scions. That's also cool. You know, I could see this in the Aristocrats deck all day. You know, it just seems like a good 3-drop that could, again, maybe replace Husk. It's not an Nantuko Husk, but could. And if it does replace Husk, by the way, then it gives us a bunch of 3/2s instead of just a 1-turn bonus to our Husk. So that seems pretty good, too. And if we can sacrifice those things somehow, then, you know, we get even more Zulaport Cutthroat triggers. The card may have some legs to stand on here in Aristocrats, but only time will tell. I'm not really sure, and the card probably will get tested at the very least, but we'll see what happens, you know, as a result of the testing. I'm not really sure. Well, that sort of ends the trend of cards that people aren't sure if they're good enough. So here's a card that I'm pretty sure is bad. This is Wailing Ghoul right here. It's 1 and a black for a 1/3 zombie, and when Wailing Ghoul enters the battlefield, you put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Boo! Limited only, more or less. You know, people are saying maybe the Delirium deck needs a blocker that could survive blocks and put a couple of cards in your graveyard, and that'd be cool. No, I really don't. I think they're just better cards for that deck, and this doesn't make the cut. So, limited play only for activating Delirium. Today, we also got a couple of reprints, a couple of semi-exciting reprints, at least for limited play, if not for standard, but who knows, maybe. This first one right here is Peace of Mind, originally printed, I believe, in Exodus, if I'm not mistaken. This is a 2 mana, that's 1 and a white, enchantment, and you can pay a white and discard a card and gain 3 life. Well, it's pretty much the perfect time to reprint this card, but I don't think it'll go anywhere near standard. It is worth pointing out, at least, that this will let you get Lone Rider transformed on turn 3. That's not bad, it guarantees a flip on that, but that seems more like an interaction meant for draft than constructed Magic. But we'll have to see. There's a lot of stuff in standard, especially like the Black-White Allies deck, that does things when you gain life. Like it cares about you gaining life. I could see this working out in limited, but again, I just really don't feel it in standard. Here's another reprint right here. This is Prey Upon, and I'm a little bit more excited about this one. This is just a green mana for a sorcery. You can have target creature you control fight target creature you don't control. Yay, it's back. I've always liked Prey Upon. Just 1 green mana is as cheap as this effect could possibly be, and sucks that it's sorcery speed, yeah. But, beggars can't be choosers. 1 green mana is a great rate for something like this. I just like this in, aggressive green shells, which we've just seen a really good aggressive green 1-drop. That's awesome. And we've got a bunch of good 2-drop green creatures already in the format. So, big fan of something like this getting reprinted right now, and I think it might see fringe standard play, at least in my budget decks. But we got one more card to cover today, and it's the card that a lot of you were waiting for. This right here is Tamiyo, Field Researcher. This is a 1, a green, a white, and a blue. That's 4 mana, just 1 generic in Bant colors. For a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. Now you can +1 her and choose up to 2 target creatures. Until your next turn, whenever either of those creatures deals combat damage, you draw a card. You can also remove 2 loyalty counters from her to tap up to 2 target non-land permanents. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. And her ultimate is -7, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with, you may cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana costs. Okay, ready? Because I'm going to say this. Is it okay if I kind of don't like her? I know a lot of people are really, really freaking out about this card. And there's some good things about it. I'll go over some things, especially about her +1, that I do like, and things that you have to cover when talking about the card. Because it's really what people are talking about the most is her +1. You can target your opponent's creatures with this as well, which can deter them from attacking, which is sort of a way she protects herself. But she doesn't protect herself in any really meaningful way. That -2 is not a bad way of protecting herself, but if you -2 her and tap 2 guys down for a turn sequence, then you run into the problem of almost never being able to reach her ultimate at that point. Her ultimate becomes far more unrealistic if you ever -2 Tamiyo, and the ultimate is obviously the most attractive part of the card by a lot. But back to her +1 for just a second here. Another thing people are saying is that you can target Sylvan Advocates that you control with this. Sometimes 2 Sylvan Advocates if you're just a super lucky guy. And both of them have Vigilance, so it's entirely possible that they can draw you a card on your turn and on your opponent's turn if you're able to block with them. That seems good, up to 4 cards or up to 2 cards out of 1 Sylvan Advocate at least. That doesn't seem bad at all. And another thing to note too about her +1 before I move on from it is that it's combat damage at all. It doesn't have to deal combat damage to a player, just if it deals any combat damage. Like if it blocks, you draw a card. So that's also not bad. And again, I will say her +1 is a way of deterring them from attacking, and so it sort of protects her, but not really. If they're intent on killing Tamiyo, they'll let you draw the cards, and they'll kill the Tamiyo. Obviously, her ultimate is unbelievable. It's a really fantastic ultimate if you can get to it. I just stuck Ancestral Recall and Omniscience on her ultimate. It's only 7 to get to. That's not really like super hard or anything, but again, she's got to protect herself, which can probably be a little tough. So I'm not sure if we're headed for another Kiora type situation here. I really hope I'm wrong. Trust me, I really, really hope that I'm wrong about this. And people are saying that this could, replace Collected Company when Collected Company rotates out. We could still have a Bant deck that's mostly creatures, and this is at the top of their curve, and we use it to tap down guys and get through for combat damage. We use it on our Sylvan Advocates and stuff to get cards during the combat step. So, Maybe, and I will say this. If you do get her ultimate off in, a Bant Company type deck, that's pretty darn good. So, not terrible at all. So, I'm really ambivalent if you can't tell, but I'm really leaning towards not great here. It could be another Sarkin or another Kiora. I mean, there's got to be bad Planeswalkers. There have to be, and there haven't been that many in a while. So, I hope I'm wrong. I really actually do hope I'm wrong. And I want you guys to tell me why I'm wrong in the comments. Maybe I'm missing something. I just don't think this is the most impressive Planeswalker I've seen in a while. That's all I've got for now. Please don't kill me because I don't like Tamiyo. Just let me know why I'm wrong. Like I said it yesterday, I really like when you tell me what I've missed. Or like if there's an interaction that I didn't mention, I really like that because we're a community. But in any case, I'm Dev from SBMTG. If you enjoyed the content, do the YouTube stuff. Like the content. If you like the content, you can sub for more of the content and content. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, my wizards.
Say content again.
Content.